Hi everybody, this is SAAD for the SAAD Truth. Several months ago I had posted a SAAD Truth clip, I think it was number 91, where I had satirized the idea that if you dislike broccoli, you're homophobic. My point was to demonstrate that certain, if you like in this case, insults, right, to call somebody homophobic is a very serious accusation, are meaningless when linked to objects that in no way could be linked to homophobia, right? I mean, you disliking a particular food, in this case broccoli, how could that make you homophobic? My reason for doing so was to satirize the idea that to dislike an ideology, to critique an ideology makes you racist. And in making that point, which I wish to reiterate here, this is like saying, if I don't like this car, it doesn't have a good sense of humor. Right? If you said something like that, then people would think you're insane. Or if I said, I don't really like soccer, I just find that soccer is too jealous, right? Then again, somebody would say, well, are you insane? Do you need to be admitted to a psychiatric institute, right? So words have meanings, concepts have meanings. The way we describe something is either insane or lucid. And so today I wanted to sort of push this argument in reference to yet something else that is happening in public discourse, and that's where people argue that facts, or even earlier in the process, a hypothesis, could be bigoted or racist, right? So a hypothesis is simply a statement which is then put to empirical scrutiny, and then the data that is collected and subsequently analyzed can help us understand whether the hypothesis should be refuted or not. And then typically we can decide whether something is a fact or not. I mean, it is a fact that Paris is a city in France. But when it comes to data, we sometimes don't have perfect certainty, but we can use the tools of the scientific method, we can use the tools of statistical inferencing to argue whether a hypothesis is refuted or not. And that reality exists independently of words like racist and bigoted, right? Facts cannot be racist or bigoted. They're either true or they're false. Now let's link this idea to something that I'm now going back to my days as a undergraduate in mathematics and computer science. Some of you may have heard of the term mathematical logic. This is actually a course that I had taken back in my undergraduate days. And in mathematical logic, you learn about Boolean algebra. So for example, you learn that if you take two statements, say statement A and B, and then you look at the conjunction of those statements, so A and B, well, then you can construct what's called a truth table. So if A and B are each false, then their conjunction is false. If either A or B is false and the other one is true, then their conjunction is false. The only possible instance where A and B as a conjunction is true is when both the statements A and B are respectively true. So that's one example of how we can use the operator known as a conjunction operator to know whether the statement making up the conjunction of A and B, what are the truth values that it can take. And so here we wouldn't be talking about the A and B expression as being racist or bigoted, right? Somebody who would say that, again, would be insane, would be admitted to a mental institution, right? It's either true or false. Now, of course, in Boolean algebra, the world is very black and white, and there are all sorts of ways that we can complicate that argument. As I said, data is messy. It's not just a truth value, but we can use the tools of the scientific method, and we could use the tools of statistical inferencing and all sorts of other tools at our disposal to know whether a statement has been validated or not, whether a hypothesis has been refuted or not. And so to argue that a fact or a hypothesis is bigoted or racist could only exist within the purview of the duplicitous or the insane or the duplicitly insane. So when we, for example, talk about whether Islam yields greater number of terrorist attacks than the 9,999 other religions combined. To ask that question, first of all, is not racist, right? If for no other reason, then it doesn't involve any race. But to argue that it is bigoted because you're targeting one group of folks is, again, insane. You're basically saying that there is a reality out there and that we could navigate through this reality, or we can understand this reality by using the tools that are available to us to either decide whether that hypothesis holds true or not. And so in the case of the hypothesis that I propose, or the research question that I propose, is it the case that Islam or terrorist attacks carried out in the name of Islam occur at a much greater likelihood or frequency than other religions? Well, we can easily do that. There are databases that exist that have listed all such terror attacks. So, for example, there's a website called religionofpeace.com, which actually uses a conservative set of criteria in listing all the terror attacks that have been done in the name of Islam since 9/11. And so far, they're at over 28,000 attacks. So now you could take that 28,000. You could decide what the number is. You don't like 28,000? We can bring it down. You want to bring it down by an order of 10, which you shouldn't have to, but let's go to 2,800. Well, if you then added up the terror attacks from every other known religion today, it wouldn't come anywhere close to that. How many would you have? 5, 10, 20, 30, 100? Whatever. I'll leave you to come up with that number. And if you find that number, please post it in the comments section. So one religion has yielded 28,000 plus terror attacks, and all 9,999 other religions have come up with a infinitesimally smaller number combined. So can we come up with some statistic that can help us know if that finding is statistically significant? Oh yeah, we can. Does that mean that we are demonizing Muslims? No. Does that mean that every Muslim is a terrorist? No. Only the insane and only the lobotomized and only the diabolically duplicitous can make such an argument. And so again, we can navigate through all sorts of delicate issues using the scientific method, using statistical inferencing. That's why that epistemological framework is so powerful. We don't need to rely on rabbis and imams. We don't need to rely on faith. We simply need to use the tools of reason, of science, data, to navigate through any question. And so, for example, if I were to ask you which demographic is more likely to commit violent crimes, little girls who are less than 5 years old, or young men who are in the 18 to 30 bracket? And there is such data. That's why we've got this little field known as epidemiology, where we look at these types of things, where we look at the incidence of diseases or incidence of crime or incidence of all sorts of issues, and we could study whether there are certain demographic groups that are more likely to commit such acts, more likely to succumb to certain diseases. That doesn't make you racist, it doesn't make you sexist, it doesn't make you an ageist. It makes you a person with a functioning brain. It makes you somebody who understands that if you wish to learn about the world in a honest and truthful manner, you use the tools that are available to us, known as the scientific method, known as statistics, known as data analysis, to arrive at conclusions. And so let's stop referring to facts, to hypotheses, as bigoted and as racist. The only thing that we know for sure when somebody levies such an accusation is that the person who levies that accusation is an idiot who is brainless. And that's a fact. That's the truth. That's the sad truth. Take care. Ciao.